I had help finding this lead. My friend John Thompson knew I was going to chair in July, and he said, well, I've got to read it, and coming up, and he gave me Gene's number, and finally Gene and I got together over the phone, and obviously, as we see, he accepted. Gene's home group is Opelousas, Louisiana, and he drove 1,450 miles just to come and talk to us tonight. With that, I give you Gene.
Hi, group. Brawl will join me with serenity prayer, please.
God, grant me serenity to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
I am Gene Kinklar, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. It has not been necessary or unnecessary for me to have a drink of beverage alcohol since April 21st, 1974. And this is not bragging. It's just to show that it does work. This program does work, one day at a time. I'm no farther away from the drunk than the man that's here for the first time. There's something I got to say right off the bat before I start, because I don't want to forget it. And that's the gratitude I have for people of Northeast Ohio for saving my life. You see, between 1963 and 1974, I was made to go to many an AA meeting I didn't want to go to. I was made to go to George M's Rapper, I didn't want to go. I wanted to make sure I wasn't a member, y'all. I stopped at Mike's Cafe before and had a couple double shots. Went to the rap room and went to the state store and got a bottle to bring back to mom and dad's and hide in the chimney clean out behind the garage on the way home. But guess what? All them old timers, Doc, Ed M, Ed O, a lot of them, they all knew I was drinking. But not one of them ever told me, get out of here, don't come back until you want to stay sober. They made me feel loved. They said, keep coming back. The reason I thank y'all for my sobriety is because if one person, I know me, if one person would have ever said, get out of here, you've been drinking, don't come back till you're ready, I would have died drunk. It's cut and dry, I would have died. That said, I am Gene, and I'm an alcoholic. And this is what it was like, this is what happened, and what it's like now. I grew up in the breeding grounds for alcoholics. A good Catholic family, and I was an altar boy. And I went to church every Sunday. But there was one problem with me. I had an inferiority complex. The feelings are a lot of the reason we drink. And feelings of inferiority is the main. I felt less than, for number one, I had a mom and dad that didn't drink and didn't smoke. I want to tell you something. Back in 1940s and 50s, that was rare. And I felt odd. And I seen my uncles, they all drank and they all smoked. And I liked what I seen them. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like them. I didn't want to be like my mother and father. I felt inferior. I had to wear a white shirt and tie at grade school. I got made fun of. There was nothing more I would have liked than to wear a pair of jeans, Levi's, with the blue stripe up the side and the row was tough. But I felt less than. So when my cousin and I went down to my grandmother's basement, drank one of my uncle's beers, a Duquesne I'll never forget, and we each drank about half of it. I lost that feeling of inferiority. Wow, that's what I was looking for. And from then until I left to go in the Navy in 1958, every opportunity I had to drink, I drank. I mean, I would babysit my uncle and aunt's kids. And I had an uncle that was a practicing alcoholic, and they'd take his booze away and they'd hide it up in Uncle Leonard's closet above the sink. And every chance I'd be over there babysitting, I'd put the kids to take their naps, and I'd be up there and I'd take a little snort of muscatel. And all, some of that, he had some real good stuff, you know. New Year's Eve, I mixed their drinks real good and strong where they'd get drunk, or I could drink right along with them, and they didn't even know it. But I had a domineering mother and father. And my father made sure I didn't drink, so he thought. And I mean, he was watching me like a hawk with everything I did. So needless to say, I had the opportunity, like my sisters, to go to college. But I chose the U.S. Navy because I wanted to get away from home. And that's when I was brought to my first AA meeting in Cleveland to hear my uncle give a lead. And my dad said, you know, you've got your choice. You know, you can drink or not drink. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to drink. And that I did when I got in the Navy, and I got into submarine service, loved it. Re-enlisted for 6 years and served a year and a half when I re-enlisted and lost my first full-time job due to alcoholism. I was kicked out in from January 11, 1963 until April the 21st, 1974. The only times I wasn't drinking, planning a drunk, or getting over a drunk was when I was in a hospital or in a jail. I wasn't in many hospitals, I've been in a lot of jails. Did a lot of bad things. I got in with organized crime. I stole, I cheated, I lied. Alcohol brought me to the place where I'd do anything to drink. You know, first it's your friend, then it turns on you. First I loved it. It made me feel good. But I was always trying to recapture that first feeling. It never happened. It never happened. It got worse and worse. There's an old saying about a man takes a drink, the drink takes a drink, and then the drink takes a man, and that's what it did. After I got out of the Navy, I learned from my uncles driving truck. I drove a scaffolding truck for him. I loved driving truck, and I had a job driving a fuel oil truck for a while and lost that because they found me with a jug of corn liquor under the seat. And I didn't have too many truck driving jobs, and so finally I went into doing outside machine shipyard work. And followed shipyard work to New Orleans, and when I got to New Orleans, I died and went to heaven. I mean, there was a bar on every corner, and it was open 24 hours a day. I mean, non-stop drinking. The only place you didn't drink was when you went to church. And it wasn't long after that I didn't go to church anymore. Got married to my first wife, and met her in a bar. And it was just one of these things that you want what I got, we're going to get married, you know. So I said, okay, I wanted what she had, so I got married. I mean, it wasn't love. It was lust. And I always used to say we were drinking partners, and we were lovers, and we was married, but we was also fighters. We fight with each other like cats and dogs. And you don't stay in a place long, so in 6 years of marriage we lived in about 60 different places. My drinking got worse and worse. The jobs got shorter in duration and longer spaces between them. Before I come to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, the year before 1974 and 1973, I had 13 jobs, and my W-2 form said that I made $2,300. So you can tell I wasn't working much of the year. My last job before I got to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous was a barroom swanger. I cleaned up bar rooms for $4 a piece plus all the booze I could drink while I was doing it. And I had 4 bars. They gave me $16 a day, and I could stay drunk on that back in '74. I had an infected burn on my leg, and they made me go to the VA hospital. I've got to go back in my story, back to when I got kicked out of the Navy. I stayed in a boarding house. And when I was in that boarding house, there was a friend of mine that went and got me shaked real bad on a Sunday morning. He got me shaking so bad that he virtually shook out of the bed. And I said, JC, I said, don't worry, I'll fix you. I went to the bootlegger and I got a pint of JW Dant, and I brought it back. He drank about half that down, and he was just as steady as I am now. And I said, if I ever get that bad, I'll quit. Also, a friend of mine died of cirrhosis of the liver, and the agony he went through, I knew I didn't want to go through that. I wanted that if I died, I'd go any way to that. Well, April 21st, 1974, got up in the morning, went to Big D's, got a fifth of booze, 6-pack of Lone Star beer, a carton of Picayune cigarettes. I went to the VA hospital to get this infected burn fixed up, and they go through you completely. And before I got out of there, the doctor come in and diagnosed me with cirrhosis of the liver. And he said, he asked me how long I drank and how much I drank, and it's the first time I told the truth. And I told him the truth. He told me, he says, son, he said, if you continue drinking this way, I'll give you less than a year to live. He says 70% of your liver is gone. He says, you got 10% to play with. Got out of that hospital, was given my pay to get back to Morgan City. And I knew if I hung around until nighttime and the bus left, I'd be drunk with that money, so I could cite back. Another miracle happened. This great uncle I listened to, I'm back in '58 before I went to the Navy. He had sent me 2 years prior the name of 2 AAs in Morgan City. And I called, and that's where I got my first sponsor in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. They said, yeah, we got a meeting tonight. And they said they'd come and pick me up. I didn't have no wheels. I didn't have nothing. I want to tell you, before I went into recovery, I went all the way down. Like I said, I've been many, many decades. I was a year on wine alone. I stayed on wine, and I was babysitting my oldest daughter now. And I went into the DTs. And I never did drink wine again, but I drank a lot of that. I was in the hobo jungles of Gretna, Louisiana. I slept in boxcars. It was no fun. No fun. I've lost households of furniture. I lost a home, a house out in Miro, Louisiana. Brand new home, fitting in 1 year. But after being diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver and coming back to Morgan City, I started making AA, and my first year in the program, I don't recommend it to anybody. I admitted I was an alcoholic, and I went out with the guys, and they tried 12-step. And that was it. We had 2 meetings a week at the time, which eventually went down to 1 meeting a week because of lack of attendance. I made the meeting and had fellowship with the other AAs. It was 6 months before I could stop shaking. I asked my sponsor, like in person, how long am I going to shake? He said, boy, you didn't get this way overnight, you ain't going to get well overnight. So just stay sober. And I did. Early in the program, I had bones to pick with different members of the group, you know. I mean, I got there to Jennings. I moved to Southwest Louisiana, and their group, and they had a bleeding deacon that used to like to preach from the 24-hour book and from how it works, you know. And I told the rest of I said, look, I said, I go to church on Sunday. I said, why did Charlie got to keep this God stuff up? I'm about sick of it. And so they got on his case. So then they had Charlie read how it works, and Charlie would say, God as you understand him. And boy, I just shriveled down in the chair. I couldn't stand it. I want to say something right now. If you're new here and you want to stay sober, do what I did. I stuck around, I listened to it. And guess what? Now some people say I'm one of them bleeding deacons. It wasn't until I was sober a year in the program. I had my 1 year Zippo lighter. They used to give you the Zippo lighter before they come up with the medallion. Everybody got a Zippo lighter when they got a year's sobriety. And they tried to get me to go to Lake Charles Convention. I didn't want to go, but finally they just about forced me to go, and I went. And when I was there, it was the first time I laughed in a year. I heard Wino Joe from Tyler, Texas speak, and I'll tell you, I virtually just about fell out of my chair laughing. It was the first time I ever laughed. Sunday morning, I heard a woman speaker. She was our area delegate to New York, Dee Dee. And that woman was, I mean, she was not a beautiful woman, but she had a smile, and she got up there and smiled, and she was talking and telling her story. She smiled. That's the way I want to be. That's the way I want to be. And that's where I started getting wanting what you had and becoming willing to go to any lengths to get it. Found out after that convention they had a meeting every night in Lake Charles, so I'd drive 44 miles from Elton to Lake Charles 3 and 4 times a week, plus 20 miles to Jennings to make my meeting down in Jennings. Got into a step study group, and studying the steps was as rewarding as I can ever say. I mean, it was awesome. I got a sponsor. I had things with the sponsor, when we got to the 5th step, I was leery. I didn't want to go into step 5, I'd say little things when I'd take my 5th step, Because of my past, I was scared there'd be a hit out on me if I divulged anything to anybody and anybody, and it got to the wrong people. I was scared I'd be pushing babies. And as long as I was slacking on step 5, I was uncomfortable. I never attained true happiness. Went to another convention. That's why I say these conventions, and I know y'all got a lot of activity up here, go to it, because hearing other ideas and other things is where you're going to learn. I heard Jack B. from Kansas City get up and give his story. The man belonged to the Kansas City mob. He got up and talked in front of 250 people and told a lot of things he done. Well, I'll tell you what, after he did that, I said, if he can do that in front of 250 people, I can take the 5th step. But I was still leery. So I called Father T up here in Menor. I said, he's an alcoholic priest. I said, Father T, I said, when I come up Christmas time, can I do a 5th step with you? He said, you sure can. And that's when I did my thorough 5th step. At the time, there's things that have come to my mind since. But I did a thorough one. I didn't hold nothing back. Needless to say, when I went back to Louisiana, people told me, they said, before you went to see your mom and dad at Christmas time, you looked like you were carrying the world around on your shoulders. They said, now you look like you're free. And I said, I am. I'm free. Prior to doing this, I will tell anyone, I had dreams of drinking. I was tempted to drink more than once. I had dreams of drinking so bad that I'd have to get up in the morning and go look in the wastebasket to make sure there wasn't an empty vodka bottle in the wastebasket. After that fifth step, there was no more dreams. I'm going to take a swig here of water. There was no more dreams. No more dreams, and my recovery got better and better and sweeter and sweeter. The way they worked our 12-step discussions, we had a reader that would read the step, and they'd do it in 13 weeks, 4 times a year, and then we'd split off in groups and talk and discuss it, and we'd go over the 12 steps 4 times a year that way. And we had a lady in Elton came in the program, and she was my running mate. And she needed a meeting every night of the week. And so I made a lot more meetings than I'd normally make. But the Lord was preparing me for the future. Because in 1986, 12 years of sobriety, the job I was in got to where I couldn't feed my family, and I had to go over the road and make minimum meetings. I'd make them here when I got by here to see Mom and Dad. Joe back there, he knows me from some of them meetings when I used to come by in the truck. But I'd make them in Boston and New York. I carried a directory, and I'd make meetings, but sometimes it'd be 2 weeks without me. I never had a drink, but I had a foundation. You know, the big books tells us, providing we are spiritually fit, many of us can do things alcoholics are not supposed to do. And I have to stay spiritually fit. I have to stay spiritually fit today. And if I don't stay spiritually fit, I'm hell. If you don't believe me, I got a wife back there. Good practice in Al-Anon. And I'll tell you, I salute the program of Al-Anon. I'll tell you, I mean, it is a blessing to be married to a woman in the program of Al-Anon. But if I'm not spiritually fit, I can be held to be honest. When I'm not spiritually fit, people pull out of me, pull out in front of me, pull all kinds of straight, crazy stunts. And I'm a stark raving maniac behind the wheel. But if I start my day off right, with prayer and meditation, the day goes good. You know, I want to tell you, I got something here on page 45 of the book. I say this especially for the newcomer, you know. If you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in a higher power, stick around. Stick around. The steps led me to it, and I found that you can do the same if you want to stay sober. Page 45, it says, well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. If you are new, you don't never have to take another drink again. In closing, I would like to say, this comes from page 164. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you till then. Thank you all for being here tonight, for I had a place to come. We all please join hands to the Lord's prayer. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Again, thank you, Gene. It's been a pleasure to meet you and get to know you in a short period of time, and I really enjoyed the story that you gave us. Very humble, very appreciative of what this has given to you, what's offered to you if you took advantage of taking the steps and working forward. That alone is a message to me, and I'll turn this over for further comment.
Gene, I'd like to thank you for your message tonight. I'm one of the new people, my third week of meetings, and I can't get enough of them. And I look forward to, having the sobriety that you've had. You've been sober my entire life. 38 years, I'll be 38 in October, and I look forward to being able to say 38 years that I'm still sober. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I'd like to thank you. I think this is the first time I've heard your whole lead. You were getting sober the year I was graduating from high school and just getting on a roll. I can remember the days when you'd come up to Ohio and visit, and you'd be stashing booze here and there and telling me, don't tell Dad about that. And I think I got a better kick out of you then, and then you got sober and you were boring as hell. You were going to these meetings, and having them easy dozen stickers on your job and everything. But, once I finally beat myself into submission, ended up becoming a power of example to me. And it's just all in the family, and I'm glad you're here tonight. I'm glad to hear you.
I would be grateful if I didn't thank you. I don't really know you to find out that. You know Joe, so I should know you. My memory is clean. You mentioned some people being in that place. And very community, when people around here like they must be great. A lot of good people. They like people a lot. Started off here, you hit me right away. See, I always felt adequate, less than. And that's why I felt for a long, long time. When you said something about part of the fifth step, I did a pretty good fifth step, I thought. I suffered a lot of years before I got some outside help. They were able to take me further fifth step, and I was able to face outlet and changed my life around 30-some years ago. So that extra help changed my life around. What helped me was my trying to stay spiritually fit each day. Got God, there's a secret in the answer. I was trying to find out the secret of the answer in my life. Really like it. Different. Life is made with heart and not down. Thank you. Bring me exactly what I needed to hear.
70 in February. February 24th. And she says, I'm 6 years older than you, and I just turned February. She says, I just turned 76. She says, you're 70. And I go, I guess I've lost too many brain cells over the years. But thank you for a good message. I went to school with some Templars originally 20 years ago. Very good message. Thank you. God bless you.
I want to thank you for sharing. You know, you're the third people in town I know. I love the other two. One is Mike and the other one is Tom. And he spent a lot of time in town, and just what a precious person he was, and how grateful he was to people that helped him stay in here and, you know, held their hands out to him. And, you know, what a great program this is. You know, I just had dinner with Bart, and I didn't know he was asleep. Or I'd been even more excited about coming to this meeting because there's a lot of people that come here right to see it or whatever. You know, you simply said what it was like, what happened, and you know, what it's like today. And it's that simple. You know, we let God stay in charge and we get out of the way. It's that simple. And, you know, God couldn't have given it to us any better than that. Thank you so much for sharing.
You know, I'd like to, I just finished my apprenticeship, and so I'm still with the old timers and still making the program. But, you know, the hope and gratitude we shared tonight, stay another day. I know in my heart there's no other way than the way of the Lord to do this program. And with the help of the fellowship, you know, it's an easy road to do it, as long as you're willing. And we expressed that tonight. So I want to thank you for coming out and sharing with us. It's always good to hear somebody from long distance. I know the loneliness of Sadler, on the road is really hard. Glad to see you still with us. Thanks for keeping going with it.
Are there any more comments from the floor? If not, I'll turn it over to our secretary, Teresa.
You talked about the inferiority complex that you had. I think most of us, we have that. I know when I drank, I thought I was loved by everyone, and I always had these, I thought it was powerful when I drank. And talked about how alcohol is your friend. Yeah, it's our friend, and then it becomes a crush, and then it's a story. So thank you for a humble and heartfelt message. Thank you for being my home group.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you join me in